Today we are working on Psalm 114. Now, the traditional use that is frequently attributed to Psalm 114 is the ability to increase our power to create change, to increase our abilities to manifest results. The way we work Psalm magic is very simple and extremely effective. We take the psalm in question and we recite it out loud all the way through once without stopping. We call this an incantation. Then we go back through that same psalm and we consider each verse in turn. And we try to deeply consider the words and the imagery and the symbols that are in the psalm. And we look at these as magical seeds, as occult meanings, as hidden meanings. And as we dig and search and contemplate those occult meanings, and we try to even apply some of what we find to the situation at hand or to our goal at hand, it is through this digging and searching and contemplating and application that in a real way that we're taking those seeds of magic and planting them into the fertile grounds of our minds, where they take root, and they grow, and they blossom forth, and then they bear fruit after their kind. And that's exactly what we are going to do together right now with Psalm 114. When Israel went out of Egypt, the house of Jacob from a people of a strange language, Judah was his sanctuary, and Israel his dominion. The sea saw it and fled. Jordan was driven back. The mountains skipped like rams, and the little hills like lambs. What ailed thee, O thou sea, that thou fleddest, thou Jordan, that thou wast driven back? Ye mountains, that ye skipped like rams, and ye little hills like lambs. Tremble, thou earth, at the presence of the Lord, at the presence of the God of Jacob, which turned the rock into a standing water, the flint into a fountain of waters. Many allusions to biblical stories in here. And we have to understand that the symbols contained in those biblical stories are very specific to us as magicians. So let's go through a few of them. So it says, when Israel went out of Egypt, it's speaking to us of our own abilities to make things happen, our own abilities to manifest changes in our lives, whether for good or for ill, consciously or unconsciously. So when Israel went out of Egypt, Israel is representative of our soul, of the truth about who we are as God created us. Egypt represents the ego mind, that part of our minds that tries to imprison our soul into a personality, into structures that have no give. We talk about the ego a lot as this idea of separation from God. And the idea of separating ourselves from God is to try to imprison us in believing that our bodies are where we live, that this world that we think we live in is real. So this three-dimensional world that is ruled by senses, which if we objectively think about our senses, they're faulty. Our eyes aren't perfect. Our noses aren't perfect. Our mouths aren't perfect. Nothing's perfect here. Our imperfect bodies are trying to perceive a world about us, and we believe everything that our senses teach us. That's the imprisonment. That's Egypt. That's how our egos try to imprison our souls here, is by making us believe that it's through the body senses that we have our life, that we have our reality, when the truth is that when we open up our spiritual sight, when we open up that third eye, if you will, we can see and experience things in a very different way that has nothing to do with this imprisonment of the ego. So when Israel went out of Egypt, the house of Jacob from a people of a strange language. So the people of a strange language is talking about barbaric people in the story. They didn't have a sophisticated language. They communicated through grunting and things like that. That's a symbol for our own ego mind. Our own ego mind is not sophisticated. It's very brute level. And so the brutishness of our own personalities. Human brutishness is really just based on our own belief in separation, our own belief that we live in a fight or fly world, that we live in a very unsafe world, a very insecure world, a very scary world. The house of Jacob was rescued, it's saying in these stories, from these barbarians. Israel exited Egypt, freed from the bondage of that. Judah was his sanctuary, and Israel his dominion. You could think of Judah being the chosen people of God. What it is to be chosen is not that you're special because God chose you. It means you're special because you chose God. You are a chosen one when you choose to be. And people really have that backward. They use this idea of a chosen one as the ego would see it. It's like, oh, I'm better than everybody else. I'm different than everybody else. I'm separate from everybody else. Or they're a special person. They're a separate person. But in reality, what Judah represents is our ability to choose infinite intelligence's will over the will of this world. So Judah was his sanctuary, that ability to be the chosen one of God, the child of infinite intelligence. And Israel, his dominion. Israel meaning your soul, the way that God created you. The sea saw it and fled. Jordan was driven back. So that's talking about two different Bible stories there. One where the Red Sea was parted, and the other one where the River Jordan was parted. Now, the Red Sea represents species remembrance. In a way, it represents the Akashic records. It represents the storyline that we as a collective consciousness have agreed to. The individual ego holds us in prison, but the collective mind holds us in prison too, because we don't even think we can go up against that Red Sea, that consciousness of the species remembrance. The idea of that story of Moses parting the Red Sea in order to be freed from Pharaoh. Pharaoh's the ego in this story. And Moses being this idea of making a new choice and waving your staff over that idea of the Red Sea, it parts. And you, when you decide not to be, no longer run by the species consciousness. You're no longer a victim of those Akashic records. You can use the Akashic records. You can swim through them. You can do whatever you want with them, but you're not victimized by them. And so then the waters part. But Pharaoh's people get swallowed up in it because the ego mind doesn't know how to do that. The ego mind doesn't know how to be free from separation because the ego mind is simply a habit of thinking, the idea that you're separate from infinite intelligence, that this is the way things are, that your body's senses are the one and only truth, and that the memories of our species are the truth and nothing else exists. That's the idea of the evil destroying itself. The ego swallows itself up. Jordan was driven back. Now, Jordan is a microcosm of the Red Sea, meaning that it's your own unconscious motivations, your own subconscious mind that is under the spell, if you will, of Pharaoh, under the spell of your ego that says, no, this is the way things are, the way things are, the way things are. Our subconscious mind is such that it manifests based on what we believe, what is held in place, our deep-seated beliefs. And so when we allow infinite intelligence to inform our subconscious mind, then we are freed from the bondage of that subconscious mind, because that subconscious mind doesn't choose things, it just responds to things. So the data that we hold in our subconscious mind becomes our objective reality, because that's just how it works. So when we allow infinite intelligence to enlighten our subconscious mind, then we start having experiences in the world that reflect that rather than all of the nonsense that we believed all of our lives. And so that's how Jordan was driven back. The Red Sea parts, Jordan is driven back. Those are symbols of you allowing yourself to be freed from both your own subconscious mind and the species mind. The mountains skipped like rams, and the little hills like lambs. Now, the mountains are those big, hard circumstances that you're always taught, well, this is just the way things are. This is just the way things are. You just have to grin and bear it. You just have to put up with certain things. And that's just how it is. Those are the mountains. They skipped like rams, and the little hills. Those are the little problems. The little things that are always your thing. So big things and little things are skipping like rams and lambs. Rams and lambs, they represent your own innocence, your ability to respond to things innocently rather than with the hardened ideas of that species remembrance and of the way that we've been trained in this world. So you're looking at things with fresh eyes. You're looking at things with innocent eyes. And what happens? Those big circumstances, and also the not so big circumstances, but those circumstances which you don't think that you have control over, change. They skip. They change right in front of your eyes. And that's your power right there to manifest in a new way by allowing your deep mind to be cleansed. And you're making new choices and looking at things with innocent eyes. What ailed thee, O thou sea, that thou fleddest, thou Jordan, that thou wast driven back? So we're going back to the Red Sea and Jordan again. What ailed thee? So we're just asking a question of our old way of manifesting. What ails the Red Sea and what ails the River Jordan that allows us to have new experiences rather than the same old, is our own ability to see things differently, our own ability to question them. Remember, Moses is you. None of these characters exist outside of you. These are just psychological principles. When you decide to put your rod over the Red Sea, it's you taking a stand and just saying, I know that my senses tell me this is how it is, but I don't buy it. And I'm going to prove it to myself and to the rest of my mind, which are all those people that you're saving. I'm going to prove it by just saying, this is how it is. We need to get where we need to go. We're not going to let the sea hold us back, and we're not going to be taken over by all of our fear thoughts that are trying to chase us. And so therefore, part this Red Sea, and I'm going straight through. That's how I'm going to go up against the race consciousness. Same thing with the River Jordan. That's how I'm going to go up against my own personal consciousness. I'm not going to just buy into everything anymore, that the way it is the way it is. You know, if you think that things are the way they are and there's no sense in doing anything about it, well, of course you're not going to have new manifestation. But if you question it and you put your staff out over those problems and you say, part, because I said so, you're a wizard. You're a witch. You're a magic worker. You're a miracle worker, if you will. You have said so, and it has to obey you because you are a child of the infinite. You're not an ego. You're not bound by your body. You're not bound by your senses. You're eternal and you're powerful, and you have all power over all circumstances when you decide to question it. We want the sea and the river that is constantly giving us the same old status quo, problem after problem after problem. We want those bodies of water to be ailed. Ye mountains that skipped like rams, and ye little hills like lambs. So what's the problem now? Big mountains and little hills? What's the problem, we're asking? What's ailing you? I'll tell you what's ailing you. My will. My will. I will that this be different. I will to see this differently. I will that infinite intelligences will be done here, because I know infinite intelligence doesn't will me to have this problem. I know infinite intelligence doesn't have the will that I be in despair or whatever the issue is that I need a new manifestation on. Infinite intelligence will is that I be happy, successful, joyous, free, that I be as my soul, that I be as I was created to be, not that I be running away from problems and running away from fears and running away from Pharaoh, running away from my ego. So that's my staff, and all of these problems will change in the blink of an eye if I have the audacity to question their reality. Tremble, thou earth, at the presence of the Lord. Now, what a huge incantation that is. You got a problem? You got something that needs to be changed? You got something that needs to be manifested in its place? Tremble, thou earth, at the presence of the Lord. It's basically saying, if God is for me, nothing can be against me. One with God is a majority here. Infinite intelligence wants me to be successful here. And so as long as I am willing to co-create with infinite intelligence and take a stand, take up my staff, wave it at this problem, take up my wand and wave it at this problem, and say, tremble, thou earth, at the presence of the Lord, at the presence of the God of Jacob. Well, who's the God of Jacob? The God of Jacob is infinite intelligence, but why is it the God of Jacob? Well, you can go through all the stories in the Bible if you want to and get all into all of the mythology of it, and that has its place. But the bottom line is what you're going to find is Jacob represents you, and it represents you as you are, as you truly are. And Jacob made a ton of mistakes. Jacob was the most unlikely person to be renamed Israel of anybody in the Bible. He did not always get things right. And neither do you. Neither do I. We don't always get things right. Does that matter? Absolutely not. You still get to raise your staff up or your wand up and say, tremble at the presence of the Lord, at the presence of the God of Jacob. So infinite intelligence is the God of me, warts and all. Deal with it. Deal with it. Which turned the rock into a standing water, the flint into a fountain of waters. So through this power, when I take up my magic wand, through this power, the God of Jacob, the presence of the Lord, I can make rocks turn to water. If I'm thirsty, I can tap on a rock and the water flows forth. And that's a symbol of hardened experiences. That's just the way it is, experiences. There's nothing anybody can do about this type experiences. It turns into water. It turns into a fountain. It turns into something completely different. Why? Because this world is not what we think it is. And this world is not so solid as we are convinced that it is. And that's the power of manifestation. That's the power of magic. That's the power of any kind of real magic, whether it's Psalm magic or not, is the ability to question the reality which is before you and put yourself within a flow of infinite intelligence that knows better, that has a higher will, that wants you to be successful, that wants you to be free, that wants you to be happy, that doesn't want you to be stuck in these hard conditions, these horrible experiences here, that wants you to prove to yourself and to all parts of your mind and everybody else that's interested in seeing that none of that has power over you and that you can manifest an incredible experience for yourself no matter what's going on around you, no matter what people are saying, no matter what people are doing, no matter how bad it seems to be, that you have that power and you can take up that wand and you can part that sea, you can drive that river back, you can get water out of a stone, you can do all of those things, because infinite intelligence wills that you have those things happen for you and through you. So we just keep coming back to this psalm each and every day until we get a sense of peace and certainty about whatever our goal or our circumstance is, and then we can move off of that and move on to something else. Thank you so much for spending a little time with me today. I so appreciate you. Until next time, blessed be.